American History Story Time. December 7th, 1941. A day you've undoubtedly heard about living in infamy. And probably the only time that the Japanese attacked U.S. soil. That you know about. So you'll probably be surprised that the Japanese attacked the state of Oregon not once, not twice, but 3 times during the Second World War. Thankfully, without the tragedy and devastation of Pearl. And in light of current events, we will start with the Japanese last attempt to attack the American mainland. So by the end of 1944, the situation was growing pretty desperate for Japan, and they decided that they were going to try to firebomb the U.S. mainland with balloons. Balloons they launched from Asia. There's no original ideas anymore. Anyway, they launched 9,000 balloons carrying high explosives, 342 of which would actually go on to hit Canada and mainland US, and did basically nothing. So one balloon did get caught in a tree, attracting the attention of a pregnant mother and her 5 children, and when they went to investigate, it tragically detonated, resulting in the only enemy-caused casualties on the US mainland during the Second World War. Then in June 1942, a couple Japanese subs just started shooting at random shit on the Oregon coastline. First a lighthouse, which did nothing, and then they shelled and torpedoed a freighter, but failed to sink that. And then one of the subs started shelling Fort Stevens, which the commander incorrectly thought was a sub base because he didn't even use his gun sight. Amazingly, the spray and pray tactic resulted in massive damage to the backstop of a baseball field on the edge of the fort, and literally nothing else. That said, one soldier did lose his life after he cut his head rushing to his battle station during the attack. But the Japanese did attack the U.S. mainland one other time. You see, after Pearl Harbor, the Japanese felt that they were untouchable back at home, and the U.S. was pissed and wanted to change that. But there was a problem. The U.S. didn't have any airfields anywhere near the Japanese mainland to go bomb it. However, the U.S. is never undeterred when it comes to creative and ridiculous ways to say fuck you to the enemy. And in this case, that creative and ridiculous way came in the form of the Doolittle Raid, where we took a bunch of bombers that were designed to take off from a runway on land, and on April 18th, 1942, 80 airmen yeeted 16 B-25 Mitchells off the deck of the USS Hornet. With nothing more than a couple engines, 4 500-pound bombs, and enough fuel to bomb Tokyo and crash land in China. And the mission was a resounding success, not necessarily in the damage done, but in boosting American morale and letting Japan know that you done messed up, Aaron. So Japan decided that they were going to attempt their own morale boost by launching the Wish.com version of the Doolittle Raid on the U.S. mainland. And this involved one shitty float plane catapulted off the deck of the same submarine that murdered the baseball backstop at Fort Stevens. Now, since this plane had the range and speed of a rascal scooter, it didn't actually have the ability to reach a target of any consequence. So their plan was to bomb the forest and start a forest fire that would divert men and resources from the war effort. Unfortunately, they forgot to check the Weather Channel for the Pacific Northwest and missed one minor detail. It's kind of moist. So as this float plane crossed over the Oregon coastline at the speed of smell, a forest ranger heard it and mistook it for a Model A backfiring, so he paid it no mind. Later, as the fog lifted that had been covering the area, a couple forest rangers saw smoke that they assumed was caused by a lightning strike and went and put out the fire. And once they finally discovered it wasn't a lightning strike, they just assumed that an American plane had accidentally dropped the bomb. And it wasn't until over 24 hours later, when we found the nose cone with some Japanese markings on it, that we realized it wasn't an accident. And we were the victims of the most pathetic aerial bombing in history. However, much of this news was suppressed as to not cause panic or damage morale, that it was possible that the Japanese could hit us here at home. Which is probably why you've never heard about the one and only laughable time that the U.S. mainland has ever been subject to aerial bombing by a foreign power.